Good morning, YouTube. How are you guys? Turn the light on. The views on here could literally be two, but I know that you guys are listening. I know that you guys are watching because you have to watch, because you guys are looking for answers, because you guys are looking for ideas. You guys actually need the channel. You guys get tidbits from the channel for healing, for all kinds of things. To know where you stand, to know where it's not safe to not know what I'm saying. So I know I'm talking to a lot of people, even though the views are low. And that's okay. Whatever works for you works for me. As long as I have your attention, that is all I really care about. Oh boy. So I remember saying that while we have a couple months ago, when I came on here, I said that mother is here. That's our mother energy, not just mine, ours, all of us. Because we are literally all children of God. We just don't think about it that way. We don't think about it in like a biological child type of way. We think about it in like, I can choose who's my God type of way, and you can't. Please give me a second. I'm gonna get the incense sticks before I need them, because I might probably need them. Okay, so back again. Hold on one second. Okay, so let us discuss. So when I first came on here in maybe last October, last November, um, and I said, you know, my mother's here. She said she's here, really, to be honest with you. She said she's here. If you are, I have a feeling that I'm speaking to a lot of spiritual people, people who understand how it works to carry energies. You'll understand how they speak through you as well. So she wanted you guys to know that she was here. She was very angered by the things that she was patiently taking. She's an energy that you have to be intuitive to deal with. You have to be perceptive to deal with, because she does not leak her emotions. You won't feel what she doesn't want you to feel. You're gonna know what she wants you to know. She has an ability to do something that I am still learning how to do, and that is how to be self-contained with your emotions. That is how to just be, to just observe with no reaction, and to observe without absorbing what is around you. I still think this is a very impressive, that to me is the epitome of self-mastery. So I think she is the most mastered being that I've ever encountered. She doesn't leak anything. Like, you can sit in her presence and she could be in a rage and you wouldn't know. She can be touched and you wouldn't know what she's feeling. I think that is, and listen, prior to this I thought I had good self-control. Like, I've had people at work, in different places, pull me aside and say, I'm very impressed with the way that you handle yourself in situations. but this is beyond, like, light years beyond that. So I'm saying all that to say that when mother's here, the reactions are controlled, that she is patient, that she can watch you disrespect her or do things and she doesn't respond to your behavior. My father does not work the same way at all. He doesn't mince words. He doesn't, when he shows up, it's because time's done. There is a presence that he has that is authoritative. His presence is a heaviness, a wall. It feels like a wall, and it feels like an impenetrable wall. His presence feels like it's done, and there are consequences for every action, because he only really comes when nothing else has worked. So you get your time, you get your messages, you get your warnings, you get your signs. It gets louder. And by the time he shows up, it's just what we call a tower moment. That's what I think a tower moment is. It's when Father has to show up after everything, all the patience and everything else that we are dealing with. So, John, stop being childish. You're 40 plus years old. Leave the filter on the video alone. By the time we get to, like, what time is it? 11. By the time I get to 9 a.m. in a day, these people have done so much by 9 a.m. that it feels like that's the first day. It's like every day is like 3 days. And by the time I get to 9 a.m., it's like the first day. It takes a lot of patience. And I can see why I'm being guided to learn non-reaction, because this position that I'm in here right now requires it. It requires non-reaction. So I'm going to tie all of that in to where I'm going with this. These messages today are from our Father. I don't say my Father, I say our Father. So the verse, the Bible verse, I'm going to skip a lot of it because a lot of it is not really relevant for what I want to talk about. The Bible verse here is Ezekiel 40. For new people listening, I start with a Bible verse. I use my Bible like other people use their tarot cards. So I could use tarot cards as well, but the Bible is very clear. The passages here are very clear, so they're not left to interpretation. And so they usually align with the downloads that come or the messages that come. And I appreciate reading it from the Bible because sometimes I try to water down the message, and they're very insistent that the words that they use are the words they want me to repeat. So, Ezekiel chapter 40, verses 1 to 5, it says, "In the 25th year of our captivity, in the beginning of the year, in the 10th day of the month, in the 14th year, after that, the city was smitten. In the selfsame day, the hand of the Lord was upon me and brought me thither. In the visions of God brought he me into the land of Israel and set me upon a very high mountain, by which was as the frame of a city on the south. And he brought me thither, and behold, there was a man whose appearance was like the appearance of brass, like a line of with a line of flax in his hand and a measuring reed, and he stood in the gate. And the man said unto me, Son of man, behold with thine eyes, and hear with thine ears, and set thine heart upon all that I shall show thee. For to the intent that I might show them unto thee art thou brought hither. Declare all that thou seest to the house of Israel. By the way, God sometimes still speaks like this in Old English, I kid you not. And behold, a wall on the outside of the house round about, and in the man's hand a measuring reed of 6 cubits long by the cubit, and an hand breadth. So he measured the breadth of the building 1 reed, and the height 1 reed. And then they take another, I want to say, like more than maybe almost 100 verses, just talking about every single angle that they have measured of, I think it's not just even one house. I didn't read through it because it was a lot, but it didn't serve the purpose of the message. It's just that this person, I believe it's Ezekiel, went with God and literally measured, an angel, and watched everything measured precisely. So it brings me then to chapter 43. Afterwards he brought me to the gate, even the gate that looketh towards the east. And behold, the glory of God of Israel came from the way of the east, and his voice was like a noise of many waters, and the earth shined with his glory. And it was according to the appearance of the vision which I saw, even according to the vision that I saw when I came to destroy the city. And the visions were like the vision that I saw by the river Shebar, and I fell upon my face. And the glory of the Lord came into the house by the way of the gate, whose prospect is towards the east. So the Spirit took me up and brought me into the inner court, and behold, the glory of the Lord filled the house. And I heard him speaking unto me out of the house, and the man stood by me. And he said unto me, Son of man, the place of my throne and the place of the soles of my feet, where I will dwell in the midst of the children of Israel forever, and my holy name shall the house of Israel no more defile, neither they nor their kings by their whoredom, nor by the carcasses of their kings in their high places. Nor by the carcasses of their kings in their high places. In the setting of their threshold by the thresholds, and their posts by my posts. Or sorry, let me read that again. In the setting of their threshold by my thresholds, and their post by my posts, and the wall between them, and the wall between me and them, they have even defiled my holy name by their abominations that they have committed. Wherefore I have consumed them in my anger. Now let them put away their whoredom and the carcasses of their kings. Now let them put away their whoredom and the carcasses of their kings far from me, and I will dwell in the midst of them forever. Thou, son of man, show the house to the house of Israel, that they may be ashamed of their iniquities, and let them measure the pattern. And if they be ashamed of all that they have done, show them the form of the house, and the fashion thereof, and the going outs thereof, and the comings in thereof, and all the forms thereof, and all the ordinances thereof, and all the forms thereof, and all the laws thereof, and write it in their sight, that they may keep the whole form thereof, and all the ordinances thereof, and do them. This is the law of the house. Upon the top of the mountain, the whole limit thereof round about shall be most holy. I'll read that again. This is the law of the house. Upon the top of the mountain, The whole limit thereof round about shall be most holy. Behold, this is the law of the house. And these are the measures of the altar after the cubits. The cubit is a cubit and a hand breadth. Even the bottom shall be a cubit, and the breadth a cubit, and the border thereof by the edge thereof round about shall be a span, and this shall be the higher place of the altar. And from the bottom upon the ground even to the lower settle shall be 2 cubits, and the breadth 1 cubit, and from the lesser settle even to the greater shall be 4 cubits, and the breadth 1 cubit. So the altar shall be 4 cubits, and from the altar and upward shall be 4 horns. And the altar shall be 12 cubits long, 12 broad, square in the 4 squares thereof. And the settle shall be 14 cubits long, and 14 broad in the 4 squares thereof. And the border about it shall be half a cubit, and the bottom thereof shall be a cubit about, and his stairs shall look towards the east. I want to just put a pin in that. When I first started my altar was smaller and it was facing south. And everything on the altar had to be adapted. So the stuff that I had on there wasn't the correct size. It wasn't positioned correctly, with everybody on the altar kind of having their own station. And so what they did was they rearranged the altar. It had to face north. It had to be stationed correctly according to their seating, according to their places, and it had to be measured according to the size that they deemed fit. So the way I had it was a complete wrong setup. In the beginning, sometimes they tolerate things that are incorrect only because they're happy to see you begin. But things will be adjusted as needed. So there were things instinctively that I did, so it couldn't be one way, it had to be covered a certain way. Things had to be placed, even the placement was important. And then there's something, and I don't want to misspeak, but I think it's what you would maybe describe as a tabernacle, but there's a space that you pray in front of the altar. And there are things that they specifically want, like libations. Libations are when you pour out water to spirit. So you get yourself a bowl, a clear bowl or a white bowl, but you take what you have until you get what you have. And you put yourself a little small structure in front of your altar. So my altar is in front of my bed, and then I have it's just 2 shoe boxes for now, literally, and then I put a cloth over it. So you need some type of a structure. I put a cloth over it, and that's where I pour my libations. They are so specific about the libations that if I walked by with any drink in my hand in front of the altar, they would spill it every single time. So every single time, thankfully, I would walk by with water, and they would spill it out of my hands until I get the point that they want me to pour out libations. Libations doesn't always have to be water, but I do water. Libations can be juice, it can be wine, it can be pop or soda. I've never poured libations of hard liquor, but I hear that people have, or people do. But there's something about libations I don't understand fully why yet. I want to, but I don't know yet of why they do it. I think it has something to do with energy. It has something to do with possibly making the energy stronger, because like energies like water. So it's almost like giving them a space to inhabit when you pray. So I pour the libations, and it's almost like I pray into the water. Something to that degree. I think that's what it has, but they're very specific about libations. So I started off doing libations, I want to say like once a week or every now and again, and now I do libations daily. If it's going to be times like full moons or significant cycles, you can feel, well, I can't say everybody can, but sometimes you can feel a cycle. I feel like we all can feel a cycle. You can feel when things are going to change, good or bad. So At times like that, I like to do libations in nature so that the water falls into the ground instead of just a bowl. So you can go outside under the full moon, direct moonlight, and pray that way. And I feel like it's just stronger. It's just stronger energy out there. They are very specific about the way you pray, and that's for a reason. So in this verse, it's not just telling the Israelites that you need to, it's telling them how to pray. It's giving them the information that they need. It's saying exact measurements of the altar. They are very specific. If they say something is supposed to be one way, it is exactly that way. It is not your way. It's not an amended version. It's not this will do. It is exactly that way. And when it's not that way, they destroy it and they make you redo it as many times as it needs to be redone, as many times as it needs to be redone the exact way that they said. We will not always understand why, but you get to a point where you want to stop redoing things and you just do it the way that they tell you to do it. And he said unto me, Son of man, thus saith the Lord God, these are the ordinances of the altar in the day when they shall make it, to offer burnt offerings thereon and to sprinkle blood thereon. Another thing I found with the Bible, it's very literal. So Christians take the parts they want to take and they don't understand that it's literal. So when you take it very literally, you understand that witchcraft and spirituality and Christianity are the same practice. It's different pages of the same book. They literally meant blood on the altar. What Christians would describe as satanic, they literally meant blood on the altar. These things are very specific. It's not metaphorical. And thou shalt give to the priests the Levites that be of the seed of Zadok, which approach unto me to minister unto me, saith the Lord God, a young bullock for a sin offering. And thou shalt take the blood thereof and pour it on the four horns of it, and on the four corners of the settle, and upon the border round about. Thus shalt thou cleanse and purge. Thou shalt take the bullock also of the sin offering, and he shall burn it in the appointed place of the house without the sanctuary. And on the second day thou shalt offer a kid of the goats without blemish for a sin offering, and they shall cleanse the altar as they did cleanse it with the bullock. One other point here in regards to offerings. When you start with offerings, you might just think that you just put it on the altar. Offerings are a direct reflection of your respect for God as well. So how it tastes matter. It must taste good to you. If it doesn't taste good to you, they don't want to consume it. Offerings can be rejected. If they don't want it, they will redirect you. If you do not have the correct food that they like in the house, you're going to find yourself going back to the supermarket to get what they like, to get what they want. They want to eat what they like. They literally, you have to understand, they're literally consuming the food on the altar. So it's not just for show. So sometimes I've seen people's offerings that are haphazard, and it looks like these are not, you're not praying to demons. So you can't just put things as if you're putting food to an animal on the altar. It must be according to the taste level of who is on the altar. So God the Father is like any other man. Meat, red meat, whole chickens, chickens in general, that is to God the Father. God the Mother is a regal feminine, a feminine energy that is likes fine foods. So things like charcuterie boards, wines, nice chocolates, roses, perfumes, anything that a very classy lady would like, she will like. The rest of them on the altar are not going to, I mean, you're not going to give a man the same thing because he's not going to find that filling. So for God the Father, it is heavy on proteins, it's heavy on meats, good cuts of meat, better. Honoring certain time periods, making extra celebrations at certain times is important. So for me, Father's Day is one. Another one for me that's very regular is Sundays, new moons, full moons, particular cycles and periods. It's very important to honor at that time. Times where you celebrate, times like Christmas, the births of children, when you get wishes granted, when prayers are answered. So it will take a while sometimes to get to that, but I will go and buy literally a whole chicken just to cook, to put on the altar, garnished very well, like how you would see in a magazine. Doesn't need to be like how we eat. We may eat heavy on rice and a little bit of protein. Hey, can you get me some sage? Shh, stop. So I will do something like a whole chicken, some potatoes around it, vegetables, and literally put it on a platter. And that's just for him alone. And your ancestors are the third energy on the altar. And for them, it's whatever they used to like. Sometimes you're just gonna know. You might be buying food for yourself and you'll stop in the supermarket and you'll look at one particular item a little bit longer, grab it. That just means somebody wants it for the altar. They will take you to places that they want to take you. So sometimes you get into your vehicle, you just get a nudge like, I need to go somewhere. And you get into your vehicle and you just find yourself, thank you. And you just find yourself at a particular place. You find yourself buying something. And then you find out later, like the reason why you went there is because you needed to get something specific that they wanted. Once you carry this energy, it's literally, they're sharing the body. So they just move. I mean, it might be what you think are your hands driving the car, and it might be you going to where you think you want to go, but you're going there for a reason. Even me, sometimes I forget I'm out of this, I'm out of that. They push me to get it. What can I say? Okay, so altar setup. While we're at it, because this talks about altar setup. We think about it visually. So how does it look? Hold on. On the left side of the altar, that is the father energy, goes on that side. Mother is in the center, ancestors on the right. Mother's in the center. I put water in the center as well. So I put a big vessel of water, like my largest wine glass, goes in the center next to roses or flowers. Sometimes I just do flower displays. Doesn't always have to be roses. Roses are preferred. And then everybody gets the meal of their choice according to their position. If you have things that represent your ancestors, it could be an item. It doesn't always have to be a picture. That is where you put that item according to where their meal placement is and anything that's special to them. So they are not all treated the same in the sense that it's like having 3 kids and one kid doesn't eat this and one doesn't eat that. And then, so you might have something one person wants, you put it in their spot. Sometimes, a lot of the times, I try to find meals that everybody can enjoy, but there are particular times where you're dealing with one person or one person comes specifically to ask for something and you'll feel it instinctively who is there. You're carrying all 3 energies, so you're gonna know who's talking to you, you're gonna know who wants something, you're gonna know who it is at the time that's the predominant energy. So there are times where I've had to learn, because I used to feel bad. I'm like, how do I give everybody the same? It's not about the same. There's sometimes I go out and I give a lot of energy to one and I just decorate their spot with a lot of things, and the other ones are not gonna be upset about that. It's just whatever work we're doing. And sometimes your ancestors come to you and they're like, this is what I want. I have found myself in supermarkets like 5 seconds before it closes, racing in the aisles, because what they ask for is what they ask for. Don't miss anything. Don't do substitutions. You got to find what it is that they asked for. I have tried that. I've tried giving them something else and an explanation like, oh, you're gonna love it because of this and that, and they don't care. The next day they're gonna wake you up really early and you're gonna go and get what they wanted because they don't want it. It's like having a craving for ice cream and someone gets you like a cookie. You didn't want it. You don't want it. You should always have things that they like on hand because they'll tell you what they like and they'll tell you when they don't want it anymore. So you don't want to deviate too much from it. Ancestors sometimes are easier to understand. Ask them what they like. The whole point of having spiritual relationships is a two-way relationship. You have to ask, what do you want? What do you like? Am I doing this the correct way? We have been conditioned to have relationships where we always talk about what we want, not worrying about what they want. This is a two-way relationship, so everything is two ways. Comforting them, reassuring them, giving them confidence. Sometimes they're not happy with the way a situation is developing, and you're going to say, you have to give them some of the confidence that you have that the situation is going to work out. Because from what they're seeing, they have a wider angle of vision than you, and they're not seeing progress. So you have to come and say, like, give me some time, I'm working on it. Every day is a new day for us to continue working on this situation. It makes them feel better, because if they don't feel better, you're not going to feel better. You guys are sharing the same vessel. The communication is in all different ways, but the energy is tethered, it's enmeshed. You cannot differentiate your emotions from theirs. So if they're uneasy, you don't have to ask. You know they're uneasy because you're uneasy. So you have to make sure almost that they feel better, that they feel light, that they're not upset, so you can relax. Otherwise, it's going to be difficult to sleep, to eat, to do anything when they're heavy. It's important to understand when you carry energy how it works. That's why they say to you, your only job is to be happy. Because when you're in a good mood, we're in a good mood. They want you to feel light. So everything you do is about controlling vibration when you're here. It is a different way of doing things. You can do gifts at the altar. Sometimes I go places and without them prompting, I think they'll like something, or I want them to try something new, because I just want to introduce them to something. Like my grandmother, I'm always trying to introduce her to new things. I want to see how she accepts it. Doesn't always work, but it's an extra that I give her. If she likes it, she likes it. If she doesn't, she doesn't. They let you know if they like it. You're gonna know in your spirit that they like it, or you're gonna know like they didn't enjoy it. They don't care for that. Everything on the altar, if you wouldn't present it to a human being, do not present it to them. It's taken as an offense. When you are in the wrong, whether it was deliberate or not, when you make a mistake, you're going to feel that you need to seek forgiveness, appeasement. It's like any relationship. If you're in a love relationship and you've crossed the line and you guys talked about it and their spirit is still upset with what you did, you're going to still have to appease them. So you're still going to continue to apologize and to be repentant. The altar is an amazing way to do that. You can show extra attention to the floral arrangements, put more things on there. I do more desserts, I do more treats. I go extra with the food. If sometimes I see my altar, I would want to eat everything on there. I recommend that if you walk past the altar and you don't want to sneak a piece of food off the altar, which you should never do, but if you do not want to sneak a piece of food off the altar, then it's not good enough. Some days they understand that you just have time with everything that's going on. You just have time just to feed them daily. Some days they understand that's the best that you can do. However, there are days where you're in the wrong. You didn't know. You used your judgment instead of asking. You messed something up. It upset the order of things. It made it harder or more work. They have to go back and redo something or do something another way. These are the days that you want to go and you want to smooth things over. This is why they tell you how to smooth things over. It is important to smooth things over. It heals the balance of the relationship. These relationships remain balanced. The way you don't want to live in the house with somebody who is not happy with you. You feel their energy. You say good morning and they grumble. They don't really care. You try to go give them a kiss on the cheek. They don't want it. It's the same thing. So you must smooth things over all the time. When you wake up in the morning, put something on the altar that gives them something. The way you have breakfast, they have breakfast. So give them something. It doesn't have to be elaborate. I was told just even a cup of coffee, and you change the water daily, every day. So I change the water in the morning. I put some coffee or some tea or nuts or cookies or some. I put something on there for them to have something. So just so that you can start the day, because they need to work every day. They work on your behalf. Their energy needs to be strong with you. So even if I don't get an opportunity to meditate, I still, that is a part of the day. Change the food and a serving size that's appropriate for a human being. Sometimes I put even more. I heard this one spiritualist talk and he said he doesn't overfeed his spirits, especially if they're not working and he's not seeing results. He doesn't want lazy spirits. It doesn't work that way with God. I say God, I combine all three as God, like a holy trinity. I say God, I don't just mean one energy. I mean the trinity. In your life, you're going to have a trinity. So you cannot overfeed them. Sometimes it looks like Christmas at the altar any time of year. And it's just for me. Christmas at my house could sometimes at my house, a Sunday looks like Christmas at other people's house. So it just depends on you and how you are. I would suggest they don't eat like things like fast food. That's like a new invention. Fast food, burgers, and stuff like that. These are not energies that do things like that. Like chips, processed food, they don't even want you eating that. That is not nutritionally, it doesn't come from the earth. So it's not nutritionally rich. It's not, you're helping them be strong to help you, to work on your behalf. I've seen people put things on their altars that are not benefiting them. So I've seen somebody who is talking about like putting Popeyes on the altar and stuff like that. I don't think your ancestors eat Popeyes. I don't think, listen, so my parents are not even that old and there are things that they won't eat. Like they just don't see it as food. Their energy is very it's like a brick wall, and they're living people. It's like a brick wall. When you suggest certain things, they just like freeze. And I think that's their way of having patience before they answer you. Like, we're not gonna eat fast food of any kind. They want real food. So if my parents are like that, my grandparents are definitely like that, where they just, I'm trying to convince, and the energy is just, it's a brick wall. It didn't enter at all. They just want what they want. So you have to pay attention. This works with feelings, with intuitive nudges. That's how God works. That's how God operates. So you're gonna get a little nudge in your feel in your system that says they're not in agreement with that. You cannot have spiritual work without having money to feed the altar. The altar is gonna cost you more. If your household has 2 people, your altar, with an altar now there are 5 people that need to eat. So you're gonna see your food budget go up. It is important to know that this is how it works. Just get used to that, and that's okay. When you pray, you must take off your shoes. I don't think socks are necessarily a big deal, but I would take off socks as well. And you set it to the right side of the altar because we are right-handed now. If you were left-handed before, you are now right-handed. You set it to the right side of the altar. I didn't know why. So I just thought it was a thing that I did. And then one time I tried to put my shoes to the left side, and it didn't, my energy wouldn't let me, because it is symbolic. Where you put shoes represents your feet and where you walk, the direction in which you're walking. We don't walk in a left-hand path. We don't move in that direction, so you put it to the right side. I have house slippers, so that's why I put them to the right side. When you're going into the spirit, you must take human shoes off of your feet. If you're people who astral project and whatnot, they take off whatever's on their feet. Also tie your head. I think even men should cover their head. Something black or something white to go into the spirit with. You cover your head, and even sometimes, even when my head's covered, I still cover with a blanket as well. So a lot of spirits will not go through a spiritual covering like that. So when I'm spiritually attacked, a lot of times I will just cover my head as well, and that helps. There's still people who can come under the covering and they can still, they'll still send energy under it. But you know what? You gotta cleanse your space. And while I'm on that, incense is for astral projection of energies and people, and sage cleans energy scent. There's a difference. Sage is not going to help with entities. Entities are still gonna come through sage, but incense is for like people that astral project, witches, and also like entities as well. So there's different remedies for different things. You learn over time what works and what doesn't work. And sometimes something works for a little bit, it doesn't work forever. Some things you just have to keep doing, because as people cross that barrier, they learn that they should not, and then they stop crossing the barrier over time. But you keep your protection work in place. That includes the protection around your home as well. Was there something else that I wanted to say? Fruits are preferred because they're natural, they're of the earth. Keep the candles lit. Keep the candles lit. When you're dealing especially with demonic entities, they want to break through. They want to create portals where they break through in your space. That's difficult as the candles stay lit. So if you can see energy, you'd see like almost like a little dot that wants to start opening, like a black dot that wants, it doesn't open if the candles remain lit. It's very important to keep your white candles lit. They bring healing and protection to the space, and they do their work. Before one candle ends, you must light another one. So when it's coming low, you light another one immediately. It is important to always be stocked up on candles. There are some energies that try to come to the altar and blow out the candles and stuff like that. These are just things that people learn that they should not do. So don't worry about stuff like that. These things rectify themselves in time. Make sure you always have candles with you. What else did I want to say? That's it for now as far as altars go. My altar is a full like little table, like a console sized table. There are people whose altars are huge tables, big tables. That's how much energies that they work with. And that table is constantly full. So everywhere a particular entity occupies on the altar, they have flowers for each one, food for each one, fruit for each one, nuts for each one, water for each one. It is a big deal to start. You don't just put entities on an altar without thinking, because when you take down their altar, it is an offense to them. And they can decide to take back everything that they did for you. Usually they do. It's offensive. So when you start an altar, the altar is for life. We do not blow out our altars. You don't stop changing water. You don't let flowers go bad. You don't let anything rot on the altar. It is symbolic. So everything on the altar remains the same. When you have joint objectives with spirit that take time, say for example, you decide, I want to build a construction company. So you might have a spot on your altar that is significant of building a construction company. It could be a tool. Take in a consideration the amount of space that you have. So you don't want to get like big tools like that, but it could be a nail, a screwdriver. It could be a, a little picture of a hard hat. It could be a, a blueprint scroll. Something over time, little by little, you keep putting little things that are indicating to spirit the environment that we're building here together. So when you give them those images, you give them that structure of what you want the future to be that you guys are doing, the altar looks like that in the spirit. Your altar is a physical manifestation of what the spirit looks like. So my altar still looks the same in the spirit. They're in the same positions, and when I put the food on the altar, I spiritually give them the food as well, and I say, thank you for an amazing day. Here you go. It's time for us to eat. Sometimes I eat in front of the altar with them. Sometimes I pray to them while they're eating. They're eating and they listen. You know, the first time I knew that I heard that this is that it's important what I put on the altar, not just that I make sure it's fed every day, but what I put is I made a particular meal. I was in a mood, and when I put it on, it's the feeling that I felt was like happiness for that meal to come. So I realized that they actually care about what I cook, how I cook, and so I try to go out of my way to make sure that I don't owe it. It doesn't always work, but if we make particular things that I know were delicacies in my country, things that my grandmother likes, I particularly in that day give her just her portion. That's more than enough. Food that you leave on the altar behaves differently than food that you left on the counter. If I left food just on the counter, it will grow mildew immediately. When I leave it on the altar, it lasts a little bit longer, but it disintegrates in a different way. It may melt, it's different. So you know that the altar is occupied by energies. The way you treat the altar is significant of the respect you have for them. It's symbolic of how you respect them. You clean the altar all the time. Sometimes you'll tell yourself, I'll clean it later. No, do it now. Wipe it down, keep it clean, don't use harsh chemicals. It's significant. They are very clean. So that means your house must also remain very clean as well. Spirits are specific about not entering dirty spaces. So you have to now go above and beyond to keep the space clean. Some days I turn off my AC, I keep my doors open to air out the space, because when you're doing spiritual work, everything has an odor. The protection work, the sage, the incense, all of it. So you want to clear out your house. I would do a deep cleaning at least by a full moon. A full moon is the culmination of the moon cycle. It's the end of the moon cycle. So opening up the new moon cycle with fresh energy. Sometimes I clean like bed sheets, baseboards, behind stove, behind the fridge, the curtains, everything. It gives a newness to the energy, so that we're working from a fresh palette. It's worth it to do it, because you feel better. Don't dispose of personal items in the same way. So things like underwear and stuff like that, do not throw that stuff out. Just take your time with how you dispose of things, how you dispose of shoes. I grew up doing this, but now I know why. I flush my hair, I flush my nails, and the same for my kids, because people will take your genetic DNA, your information, and they work on you. So you have to flush these things. Don't just throw them in the garbage. Don't throw hair out. Be careful with your items. Try to secure your locks a little bit better. Combination locks are the best locks, because you know, sometimes they'll just cut your lock and they did that to one of my storage units. They just cut the lock and they put a new lock. So it depends on what phase these people that you're dealing with are in their own personal learning, because they're also in a journey as well of learning. So yes, as you're building with spirit, you have a plan for your life. Your plan may differ from spirit, and they will let you know. The plans that you have, the convictions that you have, the things that you want, sometimes usually are because spirit wants the same thing. So you, let's say it's a construction company, like I said, there's just little things your spirit moves you to put on the altar. You might go somewhere, you might get a little bit of sand and you might put it on the altar. You might go somewhere, you might get, like I said, a nail. You might just stop and pick up something and you put, these things carry energy. And what it's basically, and before you know it, every time you walk by, with the setting up of every little thing, it just looks to you like a particular setup. It looks already like a little construction site. So that's the point of how you're doing it, is you're leaving them with that structure in the spirit, and it's basically saying it's done in the spirit. So because it's done in the spirit, it has absolutely no choice but to manifest in the physical. What I've realized here is that there are people who do spiritual work without spiritual understanding, and it's not a practice and it's not a belief. So it's not addressed with respect, and this is why they are suffering spiritually the way that they are. But that's what I'm going to talk about today, is how we approach the spirit, how careful we have to be about what we do in the spirit, how we must make amends with the actions that have been taken, and what life is going to be like moving forward. So let me continue what I was saying, because I want to talk about the altar. And thou shalt take the blood thereof, and put it on the four horns of it, and on the four corners of the settle, and upon the border round about. Thus shalt thou cleanse and purge it. Thou shalt take the bullock also of the sin offering. So there is offerings that are specifically for appeasement, to cure their anger. So thou shalt take the bullock also of the sin offering, and shalt burn it in the appointed place of the house without the sanctuary. Remember, I said the altars face north because God is up. God is in the direction of north, upward, not the south. My altar was facing south. So wherever you are, just think about, if you were driving and the GPS said to go north, then that's the direction of your house, so you put the altar. And on the second day thou shalt offer a kid of goats without blemish for a sin offering, and they shall cleanse the altar, as they did cleanse it with the bullock. When thou hast made an end of cleansing it, thou shalt offer a young bullock without blemish, and a ram out of the flock without blemish. And thou shalt offer them before the Lord, and the priest shall cast salt upon them. And they shall offer them up for a burnt offering unto the Lord. 7 days shalt thou prepare every day a goat for a sin offering. They shall also prepare a young bullock and a ram out of the flock without blemish. 7 days shall they purge the altar and purify it, and they shall consecrate themselves. And when these days are expired, it shall be that upon the 8th day, and so forward, the priest shall make your burnt offerings upon the altar, and your peace offerings, and I will accept you, saith the Lord. One thing you'll notice is they say without blemish. I advise you, these are loving relationships. So, it's kind of like if you're in a home with your elders. I don't know how everybody's culture is, but if you're at home with your elders and you're sharing out food, the most senior person in the house gets fed first, and they usually get the best portion of the meat. And then everybody down to children get last. There are people in North America, there's been the debate of, do you feed like your husband first or the children first? Who's working to feed the house? Like, it's like that. Who put the food on the table to begin with? Who needs to be fed? God needs to be fed because they provide for the house. They provide your health and your safety. So it is God first. God always. If you have, say, a bottle of wine, if I have a bottle of wine, it has enough for one glass of wine, I give God the last glass of wine. I don't take it for myself. Even though she would say, yes, you can have it, but I give it to her because I think she should have it. If you have a meal and for whatever reason you underestimated how much meat you should have, I give them more meat than I take myself. I give them more because it is symbolic of respect. If you had a real human being in your house, you would say, no, you take it because you want them to be fed. You're not going to die of starvation because of one day that you didn't get a bigger portion. So sometimes even, I'll even say, like, there are times in the beginning I wasn't estimating things correctly. I was still getting used to it. So in a situation like that, I would say, you know what? I'm just going to fast for the rest of the night to make sure the altar is okay. Because especially when you're in a period of spiritual warfare, what is the benefit that your stomach is full and spirit does not have the energy to do what they need to do? There is none. There's no benefit to that. You're going to wake up full, sick, spiritually attacked, and everything else. The other thing on your altar is you should have things like salt on your altar. It represents purity. I definitely put the protection work that is around my house. I also put that on the altar. So you can just take your mothballs and place them in different portions of the altar because it makes it unattractive to energies that will try to come and undo the work that is being done at the altar. Protection work, what else would I talk about at the altar? I keep so the air element at the altar, because our mother is the energy of earth. So there's always the earth, there's 4 elements. I talk about that: water, earth, air, and fire. The candle is the fire. Incense usually is what I use to represent air. So every once in a while, I put an incense stick on there and I just stick it in something. So I used to love, listen, it's crazy. I've always burned candles and now I know why. It keeps God close with you. So I used to just have like old candle containers. I use them for burning sage, and then I keep the ashes of the sage and then I mix that in with salt as well when I do protection work. But you're gonna have a container and I just stick the incense in. Whatever you keep on your altar stays on the altar. It becomes like a spiritual tool at that point. So any containers for the altar, they are never to be used for anyone again. I keep them separate from my dishes, and I use a separate sponge to wash them. I don't use the same sponge for everything. Spiritual stuff I use completely separate. That is how you're gonna put an altar together, and you will be guided from everything from there. You'll slowly learn how you want to do things. If you have things that you use that you want to bless, a coconut is a very important thing to keep on an altar as well. So I always have coconuts on there. Coconuts are very inexpensive. You want to keep these tools around. Sometimes I ask them if I can use the coconut for protection work as well. Sometimes, and sometimes it's just like an emergency measure, but they like the coconut because there's water in the coconut. So just make sure whatever coconuts you buy, you can hear that the liquid is in the coconut. So yeah, feed spirit and treat spirit like you would treat an actual elder in your house, somebody that you respect. Everything should be cleaned properly. Meats shouldn't smell raw, any of that. They're not demons. They're not just going to accept anything you put on there just because you put something on there. And you don't starve spirit like you would do, like people do that with energies that they control that work for them. Spirit doesn't work for you. It's the other way around. So this is basically talking about this chapter, the fact that people here in this energy have really disrespected God, and that in order to move forward, there needs to be, and I have said this over and over, the destruction of the old altars with the new altar in its place. But before you can do that, you must get the house ready for spirit to be able to inhabit. Excuse me. Cleanliness is next to godliness. The house must be clean. Excuse me. I don't mean that every once in a while you don't have things, but it must be clean. Excuse me. No odors. If you have animals, whatever, like, it must be clean. Demonic energy likes dirty energy and clutter. They like places to hide. You must keep cleaning things, reorganizing, making sure that it's fresh. You feel better in those circumstances as well, and spirit can dwell in there. And especially places around the altar must be tidy. So you want to have your home clean. You want to literally clean the house. It says here 7 days, so I would do 7 days. You want to cleanse the house of all entities. You need to be having candles all over the place, vessels of water. We have water glasses in different places. We have candles. We have, you want a sage, you want incense burning, you want protection work, you want to be praying. All of that before the proper altar gets put into place, because you cannot come pretending like nothing happened. Like, you need to be addressed properly. So I'm going to talk about what is going on here spiritually for the groups of people who have been gang stalking, and you know, it's been a mess that's been happening. Give me a second. It's ads on here. Anyway, so what's been happening? People have been taking on cloaks of other people who have what they would assume would be spiritual gifts, and what they would assume are spiritual contracts that come with things like money or high positions in life or fame or some type of glory, right? And what happens is a spiritual contract, some people's spiritual contracts, parts of it are blocked. It's blocked even from you yourself. So you can see some parts of it, and some parts of it are redacted. It's blacked out. So you'll see the part about all the good things, and you don't see the other parts of it. Because if you saw the other parts of it, you would panic. You would panic because it is worse than normal. So it's like they look into people's Akashic records. It's like your soul history, the history of your soul. Because remember, your soul, not just the history, but also the future. So remember, your soul is not just one lifetime old. And so they can see things, but not everything. So they go in and they get bits of information. And I personally believe that it is strategically done that way. So those of us that were in our south node, which is the life that we were coming from, for some of us in this place, what happens is that we were in a dangerous place. And that place had no protection, no spiritual protection, no spiritual gifts, no spiritual connection with God. And so we had to break out of that spiritual body. It looked like you, it talked like you, it was you, but it was an old version of you. And you have to ascend and break into the new version of you that is able to walk through. If you live in a house where everybody in the house is under spiritual attack, then everybody is ascending together. They are ascending by the work one person sometimes is doing spiritually. So you're doing the spiritual work, you're learning the lessons, and the person who's going through it is leading the others. It's kind of like how Moses took the Israelites out of Egypt. Moses might be the one that's getting the instructions from God. Do this, do that, build an altar, sacrifice this, do this, whatever the case is. Moses gives the information to the people, and the people also ascend on their journey to the promised land. It is both a 3D thing and a 5D thing, a 3D reality and a spiritual reality. So, what happens is people come in and they attack you, or you go through all of these lessons. Sometimes maybe your lesson's not by being attacked by other people. It could be just circumstances that you go through that force you to be closer to God. You go through that cycle, and then one person in the home, you get prompted step by step. So it could be like, pray in this way, do this with your family, do that. And just one day, people they get their spiritual gifts, they get their calling, they change. God's able to work through them. The devil is not able, or demons or darker entities aren't able to access them in the same way. Things just shift on their own. So they break out of their old spiritual bodies. And it happens at different times for different people. Can I get an incense stick, please? So it happens at different times for different people. That's good news, because if you have people in your home that should not be experiencing the traumatic effect, like events that you're going through, like children or animals or whatever, it's good for you to bear the brunt of it, because it could be traumatic for the others. That is not to say that they don't have, thank you, that they don't have the spiritual strength to go through it. It's just that this is how Spirit decides that it's going to be done. As they go into their spiritual body, or sorry, you go into your north node, which is your new spiritual body, there are people who have stolen your spiritual cloak. They've stolen your old life. You had to break into your new life, but they've taken on your old cloak. So God has basically, like I said, God does not like waste. So God has basically said, we have use of the old cloak. Instead of getting rid of it, why don't we give it to the people who have taken it? So we saw that when the tarot readings would talk about divine masculine or divine feminine, it would say divine feminine is doing this, divine masculine is doing this. And if you followed along for a long time, there would have been a time where you would be like, this doesn't apply to me. Like, they're talking about divine feminine, but this doesn't apply to me. Like, what is this? It is because you've graduated past that point. It's because you're now at the point of your journey where you've broken out of whatever that mold was. Because whatever that old body is, it comes with a set of rules and instructions, experiences, and life lessons. You are past that now, and you're going to go in a different direction. So people took cloaks of not just like people like myself who have jobs that we have to do for Spirit, but they tried, what they wanted was where I'm at, the north node. That's what they wanted, but they took it in the south node. So they took it before ascension. The universe accepted their decree, so they were walking around in that vessel. That vessel comes with a particular set of circumstances, rules, enemies, all of it. They've taken on your old life, and your old life comes with a set of instructions. So in that old life, let's say they were in for example, I'll talk about myself. I was in a very dangerous situation. In that old life, people wanted to curse me. Not wanted, they were. People wanted things to happen to my children. I was in a state of constant spiritual attack. And So whoever took on that cloak finds themselves in the same situation. Their womb is probably being attacked. Their crown is being attacked. Every chakra, to be honest with you, everything is being attacked all the time. They're under constant persecution and they have no peace. These kind of soul contracts require protection and connection with the Most High. Connection with the Most High comes in the way the Most High wants the connection to happen, not in the way you think it should be. It's much more than just praying, it's symbolic. So, being in the cloak opens you up to all the enemies of the cloak. Being in our position comes with many enemies, and they are not regular enemies, they are powerful enemies. So, as you're being attacked in the 3D by high ranking enemies, you make high ranking human enemies as well. So if the demon attacking you has any sort of rank, then the people attacking you will have a lot of money, a lot of power, and a lot of influence. In my case, they will be people who are above the law. It will be very terrifying. So, as I was told, strength will be needed. These are not life paths you want to walk if you are a quitter, if you're someone who finds it hard to work against very heavy emotions, if you're someone who finds difficulty in navigating challenges, this is going to push you to the wall, to a limit. So, it must be endured because the universe expects you to show up. It has a position, it has a job opening. In its mind, there is someone that is there for the job, and that person is not showing up, and it's going to anger them as you don't show up. They want you to show up for work. They expect you to show up for work. Before, they were asking very gently, please show up for work. And now they are like, where is the person who's supposed to show up for work? These are the highest ranking spirits that there are, that exist. So they're going to behave. Okay, let me just follow this. The cloak is yours, and let me tell you, you cannot get out of spiritual contracts at all. At all. There is work to be done. Trying to get out of the contract, you can get out of a soul tie before you get out of a spiritual contract, a divine contract. You have to walk the divine contract because they need it. So they will gently ask at first. They want your cooperation and your participation to be voluntary because they assume it's voluntary because you took the contract. They don't understand what's going on when you don't show up because you took the contract. It's very odd for the universe is black and white, so it thinks in black and white. I call them people because they are people, they just don't have bodies. For people who are black and white, who operate on emotions, they're very black and white. So they think, why isn't this operating in the way that it's programmed to operate? They think something's wrong, and so it reacts like that. It's like, think about it in the way you think about in your body. In your body, things are supposed to function the way they're supposed to function. As soon as something is odd, the white blood cells, they stop and they're like, what is that? They check the genetic information that they have and they say, we don't have a code for that. If it's a flu and they've had this strain before, they're like, oh, well, let's implement this action to cure it. If they don't have an understanding of this anomaly, this weird thing, what they will do is they will call in and replicate so much of themselves to come around the problem, to isolate the problem from the rest of the body so the rest of the function, everything else can function as it should be. And that's how they react to an infection. When nothing's working, they start raising your temperature in your body, and that's where you get the fever, because they're trying to put out this anomaly, this weird thing that's happening. They're putting an end to it because they don't want it to exist. And once they put an end to it, they expel it out of the body. Either you urinate it out, you throw it up, or something. Mucus from your nose, it needs to expel it in whatever way is appropriate, because it doesn't feel like it should be there. It requires everything to function in the way that it's supposed to. The universe, the same energy that created your body, is the energy of the universe. And so when there is an anomaly spiritually, as there is a patrol, they pause and they stop and they're like, what is that? And it shines a light on it, and it calls in a lot of energy around it, and it puts it under a microscope. What is this thing that they're doing? What are they doing down there? Oh, they're stealing contracts. So they put it under review, and then they decide what they're going to do with it. And in this situation, while trying to expel the problem, raising the temperature on the problem to create a fever, they've decided that you guys get to keep the contract because you guys are persistent. You guys are built for this, quite frankly. And I'll tell you, you really are. These are not even my words, but in my opinion, I even said to God, I was like, I agree, they are built for this. God thinks that you guys have the correct attitude and the correct strength to work under the pressure it requires to have the contract. Because these contracts represent pressure. So what does pressure look like? The best thing that comes to mind is I watched The Matrix the other day, and Neo was put in a position where he didn't have a choice. And from the day he got that phone call, he saw something on his computer that says, follow the white rabbit. He goes to the thing, he meets Trinity. And from the day he puts on that cloak, his life is upside down. The first day they come looking for him, so what happens is when Neo wakes up, both the agent Smiths come looking for him at work, and the side he's supposed to be on, they're there. These are feuding sides. Every time someone awakens, there is a fight for their soul. Neo wakes up, he gets a call on a phone that comes in a package. He's told to go out the window on the scaffold. And he doesn't know I don't know how many stories high, but he's very high. He's like, there's no way I'm doing this. They're like, it's either that way or they take you out in handcuffs. He tries, it's scary, he goes back out in handcuffs. He gets to the station, the agents are like, you're gonna do this for me. And he's like, no, I'm not. He gives them the finger, and they seal his mouth shut. And that is where Neo starts realizing that the world he's in is not the world he thought. This is a different world. That's what happens when you're gang stalked. You realize the illusion that you've been living. Neo is very valuable. Everybody wants Neo. Neo woke up and already has enemies. The enemies came nicely, but they're still enemies. So Neo has to pick a side. Agent Smiths, or the side of fighting for freedom, the side of doing God's work. And what you're gonna find is that the Agent Smiths are ruthless. The Agent Smiths are dangerous. These are the enemies of Neo, even though Neo doesn't know it. Whether or not he works for them, they don't like human beings. They don't like the stench of you. When you hear Agent Smith talk about humans, he talks about them like a parasite. he says that they're a parasite. They are of a hive mind, and they will say and do whatever they need to do, and their whole programming is to feed off of human beings and to enslave them. That's it. They don't see human beings as something viable. So that's where you guys find yourself. You're waking up, even though you were just asleep, and you're waking up and you're in soul contracts and you require healing because you've been under fire. The temperature has been turned up under you, and but you've gone through it, and you've earned the spot, and the cloaks are yours now. It's dangerous work, so you're going to need protection, meaning that you're going to need to connect to God. You're going to need divine protection. You cannot be out here by yourself. You can't serve two gods, so you have to take down the altars that you currently have. And you have to cleanse and put in the altars that you're needed, because these are divine contracts. It's like it's an international plug, using your local plug, or your local plug in like a international socket. It's not gonna work. You have to connect to divinity in order to activate a divine contract. But what you will be is you will attract dark energies everywhere you go, in the 3D and in reality and spiritually. You're going to attract dark energy, and it's going to attack you aggressively everywhere you go. So it's important that you are protected, and it's also important that you enter into your spiritual family. That means you need to repent. You need to change your perspective, and you need to come in. There was a reading that says we need a life for every ritual performed. Every death ritual, every sickness, everything, they need a life for that. And so they don't mean a death for that. They said they need a life for that. A life in service. Not a death. They needed a life for that. Healing cannot come from other people. It's definitely going to come from God. And if you know one thing, is that spiritual healing is not like physical healing. Physical healing is very difficult. Or sorry, physical healing is different. Physical healing, it's like, say for example, you're physically tired. You can go take a nap. You can go sleep. When you are spiritually, when you spiritually need healing, it's you can't nap it off. You can't sleep it off. You can't take medication. You can't cleanse it off. This comes from divine beings. It's a different type of cleaning. It's soul level cleansing and healing. So if you do not have that, in the absence of having that, your situation is going to worsen, because it's like you're putting an end to yourself spiritually. You're gonna need to repay your debts, and so how you've suffered has been repayment of your spiritual debt. As you continue to create more karma, as you continue to create more situations, you continue to create more karma to be cleansed. You keep yourself stuck in an old cycle, and when the cycle is forced to shut, you're going to be stuck opening a new cycle of suffering. Cycles are not short. Listen, you will be begging for release from these cycles, and it won't come. You cannot be released from this. You have to walk the path. You need the healing work. You need the spiritual work. You need to accept it, that you can't have reward without the effort. You can't have the prosperity of the contract, the fruits of the contract, without putting forth the effort that the contract requires. Paying forward, not after, paying forward with the work that needs to be done. Whatever comes from it, whatever rewards are for a job well done. It's not just, it's gonna come to you automatically. Service contracts are contracts of suffering. Service contracts are not contracts only of suffering, but they do involve suffering. They involve suffering. It will do the collective good, whatever work you're doing, and the universe thanks you in advance. Your suffering will not be in vain. It will bring people peace and healing. So it's like saying, instead of simply just punishing you for what you've done, we will put you in a position of service where your service will do good in the same way your service did bad. And yes, that might be difficult at times. It will be grueling at times. However, it's necessary. So it's the community service that you're doing. You're advised to volunteer your participation in your agreement because it is easier that way. It is way easier to agree than for you to fight the universe on this issue, because the temperature is going to continue being turned up, and the universe has been trying to get your agreement and your buy-in for quite some time. It hasn't worked. So that's why Father has to be here. We pray you relent, but spiritual law is not, you can't just write it and break it. Spiritual law is honored by all entities, including father and mother. Like, if the law says that you are supposed to show up in your contract, then it's going to demand that you show up in your contract. What I mean by that is, your contract is going to play out whether you like it or not. So the life path of this soul says that they're going to face, I don't know, bankruptcy. And then from that, they're going to learn. You're going to face the bankruptcy anyway, whether you accept it or not. The soul contract here is to be gang stalked. You're going to be gang stalked whether you understand it or not. Being gang stalked while voluntarily in service means that you have spiritual connection, you have help, you have guidance, you have protection, and so you understand as you walk this path, being gang stalked is for a higher purpose. But when you're gang stalked without that understanding, guidance, and protection, all the suffering of the gang stalking happens to you. All the persecution, all of it, even though you being gang stalked does still serve the greater good, it's going to be tumultuous. It's going to be more painful than it needs to be, rather than if you were coached through it every second of it. You are essentially now an Eunuch. It is spelled Eunuchs. Well, Eunuchs, but Eunuch. And an Eunuch is an Eunuch is described as a man who is castrated. His manhood is cut off to be put in a place of service. So essentially, an Eunuch would be someone who, so one of the service places for Eunuchs would be, say the king needs to protect his concubines. Concubines are women that are just there for the pleasure of the king. If a king needs to protect concubines, he needs a man in that role. But he doesn't want a man that is going to get in his head to be tempted. So what he will do is he will castrate another man, take away his ability to be aroused, and then he will put him in the position to take care of the concubines. It's basically putting someone in a position where they do not have any interests of their own. They do not pursue lives of their own. They are in positions where the only thing that they can be concerned with is the service that they've been put into place to have. So I'm gonna read the portion yesterday that I read about Eunuchs to kind of make it clear to make it clear what is meant by that. So Matthew chapter 19 says about Eunuchs, for there are some Eunuchs which were so born from their mother's womb, and there are some Eunuchs which were made eunuchs of men, and there are Eunuchs which have made themselves eunuchs for the kingdom of heaven's sake. He that is able to receive it, let him receive it. And in this situation, people have made themselves eunuchs. So there are three categories here. People who were born eunuchs are people like myself. I was just born into service, and I don't have a choice about that one way or the other. I have to follow my life path. And then there are people who are made into eunuchs, and so other people have made them through whatever actions have taken away their right to live an independent lifestyle. And then there are eunuchs who have made themselves eunuchs for the kingdom of heaven's sake. And I think that's the last group that we're dealing with here. They have made themselves into eunuchs, or they can fall into both of the categories, which is they were made by other men to make themselves into eunuchs. But either way, that's what happens. This is a life where you don't decide your own life, and spirit is in all your affairs and personal agendas, to the point that you are spirit's personal agenda. And that is everything. Spirit requires, on certain missions, spirit requires things like how you dress up, how you eat. I mean, there's nothing too small, because all of it works towards the greater good of spirit. You need to rely on prayer, because you rely on them for all needs. You are like a child. Where I'm an adult in real life, I am a child spiritually. I listen to all instructions. I don't pay attention to anything around me. It doesn't matter what the circumstances are, I have to show up. The guidance you need is mandatory, or you don't have the map. You don't know which way to go. So you need God to tell you what way you are going. That's why you need the connection to God in order to unlock the gifts that are locked in your contract. Your situation is not just devolving or falling apart because you're not listening. It's not just because of your insolence. It's you're suffering because you don't have guidance. This situation is happening whether or not any of us like it. The cycles will open and close as they see fit. But the suffering is because you cannot get the necessary information to heal you, to help you navigate through. The advice is to give relief, and it's to navigate you through safety, so you don't prolong your cycle unnecessarily. If you don't know that by doing this or by doing that, you're putting yourself in harm's way, then you're going to remain in harm's way. In this situation, you're going to marry who you're told to marry, live where you're told to live, trust who you're told to trust, how to eat, how to pray. And it's funny because as I was writing all of this down, then I get the Bible verse that God is telling you literally how to pray. This is how you have to pray. And they're going to need to find new work for your hands, because if we leave your hands idle, then the devil's going to find work for your hands. So they're going to find new work for your hands, whatever that may be. It's probably similar to what you came out of, where they just put work in your hands. They just gave you a business. That is giving someone a destiny in a sense. You are going to be constantly groomed for ever-changing realities. What you thought was your reality today is not your reality tomorrow. I thought my reality looked one way the entire time, and I wake up one day and reality has changed. It's a new thing. And You have to work with it. You have to flow with it. You have to be malleable. You have to be teachable. You have to be adjustable, because this is the path. This is what's going on here. You have to be able to follow instructions, because you will have no control of your life ever again. That old world is behind you. You're told everything that you need to do. Here, where our Holy Mother is patient, our Holy Father is not. He is clear. He just says what he says, and he really expects it to happen. And in the absence of that, everything is quick. Everything is quick. The answer to prayers is quick. Karma is quick. Everything is quick. You're done past the point of being given patience. You're going to find out quickly that what you don't hear, you feel. You regret instantly. You regret instantly not listening. And it's not reversible. It's not like, oh, I'm going to get here, I'm going to beg for forgiveness, I'm going to say sorry, and they're going to pull me out. No, you're going to walk through that fire, because the lessons need to be learned and then integrated in you. Your feelings will be tethered to the divine, and therefore the reason, well, not will be, they are tethered to divine. And the reason that you're feeling discomfort is you're being punished. So I tried to say the reason you're being feeling discomfort is that's because that's how God sees it. And they were like, punished. They're like, I said punished. You're being punished. You're being punished. Those are their words, not mine. You will feel good again when you're back in God's good graces. Once you're back in God's good graces, for no good reason, you'll be happy. And it's time to put away childish behavior and childishness. Doing things that are absolutely horrible, laughing at it, being immature. It will be put out of you whether you like it or not. Things are just going to turn where they're not funny anymore. You are in a fight for your soul, because you can't serve two masters, and the stronger will win, and that is God. God is very persistent. Whatever persistence you think you have, they are very persistent. They will keep you within an inch of your life for as long as it takes for you to see reason. Healing is a conscious decision. It happens from the inside. Please don't bother looking for healing from other people when you're under judgment. It comes from within, and you want God within you to heal you. I want to say you guys were meant to take these contracts, and this was an initiation of sorts, and you survived your initiation. Spirit advises cooperation to heal you. This is for your satisfaction, to work harmoniously with the spirits, to not be a barrier to yourself, and to enjoy beauty of union with the gods, because there is beauty in that union. It's a loving, loving union. One message that I got yesterday was that it's time to ask God for what you want. Make petitions and pleas for what you want. Whatever it is, it's personal. So it's the time of your contract to ask God for what you want and to go ahead and write it down. I would say take at least 24 hours minimum. I took a while before I asked for mine. I took a couple of days to think about it, because I wanted to make sure it had all the elements, because what you ask for today lasts a lifetime. So you want to ask for things that have to do with enjoying anything that you ask for. Good health and stuff like that, not just money, because that's what people always want to talk about. I just want to let you know that Father is now here. Where I said before, Mommy is here, Father is now here. And protection is something that is not going to be negotiable for you. You're going to be in dangerous situations, and you are blocked from the path originally meant for you. But in a way, this is the path for you. They said, enough of the nonsense, the exact words, enough of the nonsense, and there's no more time for patience. They've been patient enough with the situation. So we are in a tower moment, and I just want to advise people, please enjoy the calm in your life, because the way it's going right now, the towers are about to drop. And I mean towers. So these are towers that you're going to be in with very scary, dangerous energies. These are dangerous energies. So, enjoy, like I said, enjoy the calm before any storm that's coming here. Okay, God wants me to read this card. It comes out all the time. So it says, it is time to stop letting worry rule you. Instead, get excited about your future and all it will bring. What energy and emotion you put out comes back to you. With a little conscious effort on your part, that happy ending can and will be yours. Believe that. So this is my message for today. How did I do? Just about an hour. Thank you guys for spending some time with me. And oh, I'm gonna have to do that in another video. But anyway, this is the message. So the people here, the spiritualists that have taken on these spiritual cloaks, I just want you to know, God really expects you to show up. God expects you to keep the contract and walk through it. So this is the message I have for today. Thank you and have a great day.